So welcome everyone. We're just starting off, a few people joining in. So welcome this evening to this information session. I'm just going to give it a few moments for all of our participants to join. So just take a minute to settle in and relax, and we'll get going shortly. So I think we might start. We've got a good 30 people online with us. So as I said, welcome everyone who's just joined in to this information session on the mindfulness-based stress reduction program that we're running in Aware. My name is Susan Brannock, and I'm delighted to be joined this evening by Josephine Lynch and Erica Balfour, who are the two instructors. I guess isn't instructor the right word? I'm not sure. The two teachers for the mindfulness course. So welcome everyone who's joining us. I suppose, as I said, this is a bit of a chance where we'll talk through the 8-week sessions and give you a bit of an overview of what to expect. And so we'll probably run till about 8:15, maybe 8:20 or so. So we'll give a bit of an overview, and there'll be room to ask questions in the Q&A box. So what we'll do our best to get to the questions and give you as much information as you're going to need this evening. And then at the end of the session, we'll talk through what happens next. But thank you all for making the time to join us. I guess just a brief word on the program itself before I hand over to Josephine and Erica. As many of you might be familiar with mindfulness or aware of, I suppose, its use in terms of, I guess, supporting people with depression, whether that's people who've experienced depression in the past. It's a kind of a clinically recommended intervention to, I suppose, to manage reoccurrences of depressive episodes, as well as improving stress levels and a whole range of other benefits that we'll get to over the course of this session. So I suppose at Aware, we had really wanted to offer this program free of charge to people who have an experience of depression. I suppose to teach maybe another or alternative ways to manage emotions and to relate to, I guess, the daily sort of stresses and challenges that life brings. Now, I'm not sure if that's a terrible description, Erica and Josephine, so you might jump in as well as we're talking. So the format for this evening is, what we'll do is sort of, as I said, kind of go through an overview of what to expect, and we might do that through sort of the questions that we kind of typically get on this program. So we'll tackle them kind of as we go through. So why don't I just start with the first question, which is just really to give us a bit of an overview of the program and what to expect. Erica, if I hand that one over to you, someone signing up this evening, what would they be expecting over the course of the 8 weeks in this mindfulness-based stress reduction?
Yeah, thanks, Susan. Hi, everybody. So this is it's an 8-week program. Sometimes it's run over 9 weeks, actually, depending on the time of year. That is, it's been developed back in 1979 by a molecular biologist called John Kabat-Zinn, who was also a researcher. And so he developed this program for a group of people to support them actually to live with chronic pain. Originally, that's how it was kind of developed, or who it was developed for. But the program itself, it contains 8 2.5-hour sessions, plus one kind of smaller orientation session before you begin, which we'll maybe talk about a little bit more about later. And then also towards the latter end of the course, a day of practice from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And so the program itself will be learning. It's a kind of an intensive training in learning mindfulness and mindfulness practice. Which maybe we'll go into. Well, you've already kind of gone into that a little bit already, Susan. And so we'll be learning that through practicing meditation, sort of formally, sitting down, standing up, walking through movement, and also sort of informally practicing being aware and mindful of just sort of normal everyday things that go on in our lives. And so how that will look in the class is that we practice mindfulness meditation. So we're kind of learning through doing. It's very experiential. It's not like that you'll be coming in, sitting down and taking notes. It's not that kind of class. It's more just we're doing it. And then you're learning from your own experience. So we practice, and then after the practice, we sort of reflect in small groups and in the big group. So we're learning, you know, from sort of introspection, from reflecting on our own experience, from listening to each other, and from sharing and some discussions. Yeah, so that's kind of how it looks, I guess. You know, basically it's this sort of learning through repetition, through coming back again and again to sort of see a little bit more clearly our own thoughts, our own emotions, and sensations that are happening in the body. And then sort of over time, we build up this muscle of mindfulness that helps us to then kind of find a sort of new, maybe appreciation for the vitality of the moment, and kind of a deeper engagement in our experience. I think sort of mostly we learn, but I find mostly people learn from the group. They're learning just from just hearing other people talking about their experience of maybe their depression or their anxiety or their overwhelm or their fear, and just learning and hearing that there's something about that can help us to kind of relax, because so much of our suffering is about sort of feeling like we're not dealing with that properly, or, you know, we should be coping better in some way. So there's something really powerful just about the group.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, thank you, Erica. It's a really helpful overview. So as you say, it sounds very experiential. So certainly people kind of doing the exercises or the practices in the group, and that space to reflect back, which is, it's really helpful to hear what their experiences and maybe noticing how we respond to the difficulty or when we feel that we're not doing it right or in the same way. Yeah. And I guess maybe that leads on to the kind of the benefits maybe. I don't know if you want to take that, Josephine. What have you seen, or what do you know of the benefits to the program?
Or I suppose, what do I know from my own life, you know?
Yeah.
Because we all, you know, have fears and worries and anxieties and wake up feeling crap. Other days we feel fine. So it's, you know, sort of in life escapes from the sort of ups and downs, if you like. And sometimes that's very intense. And I think one of the biggest things is that we begin slowly to, and we say this in the guidance again, it's okay to feel this way, you know, because so often we're condemning ourselves and, well, why do I feel this way? Which is legitimate, of course, sometimes, but often it's this spiral of, well, why do I wake up feeling down? Or why did they say that to me? Or it's my fault. And I remember seeing, actually it was Tony Bates I borrowed this from, but anyway, it's like this is us, okay, like I'm stuck in this little jar. We're stuck trying to often conform, trying not to feelings that we have, not to states of mind, feeling bad. And so mindfulness, rather than getting so stuck in this little jam jar, we've got a sort of a bigger container. You know, so this, we're not trying to change this, but we have a bit more spaciousness, a bit more, it's okay to feel this way, you know, and that, and it's not forced, it's whatever it is that is right here, be it sadness, be it, you know, worry. God, I shouldn't be worrying, I'm an anxious person. I'm saying, it's okay. It's okay to worry, you know? So it's this bigger container that can allow ourselves to feel what we're feeling without adding to, I'm a terrible person. What's going to happen? And when they did the study and the research on the depression, they found that mostly the recurrence of that kept going by avoiding unpleasant feelings because we're afraid of them. We feel threatened by certain feelings, and that avoidance and that going into the thinking and the rumination sort of can slowly we can sort of go down and get stuck. And so with the mindfulness, there's a little bit more awareness of what is happening. Okay, maybe I can respond. I have some choice. I've got a little bit of agency, rather than feeling sort of wedded and glued to certain ways of being, you know.
Yeah.
It's not our fault.
Yeah.
So,
you know, that's great. Yeah, I guess it sounds like
I think the essence is probably some of that, you know.
yeah, and I guess then, as you say, that then it has a knock. Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm breaking up there, but yeah, it has a knock-on effect. That sort of spaciousness maybe allows a different perspective taking on the everyday, and then also kind of that key part, isn't it, about unpleasant experiences, and our nature is to, as you say, avoid them. Yeah, so kind of developing a different relationship with that. So it's all in the response, isn't it? Do you think there's any risks that people need to be aware of in taking up the course? Erica, I don't know if you,
yeah, there could be there are some risks. I mean, for example, even very simply, there's on week 3 we do a little bit of mindful movement, and which is a bit like mindful yoga, let's say. And so we are exploring our experience by kind of tracking sensations moment by moment. And you may have so myself or Josephine, will invite you to move in a certain way, and we'll also be saying, but only up to the edge of your sort of limitations, and not to be pushing through through sort of powering through or striving or creating pain in the body. So for example, if you were somebody who might just not listen to the teacher, we'll be inviting you to adapt or modify or whatever. And if you don't, you could hurt yourself. So for example, I have a really dodgy neck, and Josephine might be able to move her neck way more than I can. And if I were to try and move the same, then I could injure myself. Yeah.
Nicely demonstrated.
So yeah, if you have an injury or something, it's really like, I think a core tenet is learning how to take care of yourself in this course as well.
Yeah.
So that could be something, but also this is there's times when this course it's not the right time for you or not the right fit. So for example, if you have really, really acute anxiety right now, it might be a good idea to wait a little while until it's sort of steadied out a little bit, or just sitting still sometimes can be just a sort of an impossibility for us at times, right? Or if you're in a very acute depression, or maybe an episode of psychosis, or if you've in the middle of if you have a history of substance abuse, that might be something that we need to kind of talk about in the orientation, or if you have a history of trauma, that can also be something that we need to explore in the little orientation session that we might talk about in a bit as well. So those are the risks. I think other risks might be that you sometimes find out stuff about yourself that you might not particularly like, that can take a little while but there are ways we're learning how to be with that too. Learning how to be with not knowing.
It's sort of a continuum of risk, isn't it? I guess, as you say, there could be some physical issues, and even that's interesting. I certainly know when I do some of the, the kind of more physical thing, there's a noticing of that competition with myself and doing it, so I guess that there's a noticing in that. But as you say, there's maybe listening to the teacher and listening to your body is quite key. And then there's the potential risks of what we all go through in change and transformation, and maybe some of the pain of those insights, as well as the different relationship to them as we move forward. But that is a potential risk. And then, as you say, the kind of at the more pronounced end, if someone's actually in a place that it's not going to be safe to kind of get into their body or get into a discussion or get into that whole space, like maybe that's not the right time because of anxiety or different issues that might be happening, or even maybe recent changes as well that are, you might say maybe having gone through a big transition like a divorce, or something substantial that maybe it may not be the best timing. And that's not to say that someone couldn't come back and do the course in 3 months' time or something, but it's the timing is maybe quite key, would you say?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add in here. Sometimes the
Yeah.
analogy is almost like, well, if we have a just an open wound, it's too
Mm.
early to
Mm.
sit with it. There needs to be a little bit of cover on it, you know, a little bit of healing before we can begin to sort of sit with ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, so being busy and looking at Netflix and whatever we might like to do, that has sometimes a really healthy function because it's too much.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's just becomes just too painful, you might say. You know, the right time, as you say, the right medicine at the right time, isn't it?
It's key. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess I was going to ask you about, the kind of being in a certain headspace to do it, but I think we've covered that. But I guess maybe I don't know if it's worth saying at this point that there is sort of home practice involved and kind of, there's a kind of on a very practical, logistical level, having space in your life for Erica, you said 2.5 hours a week?
Yeah.
And then, so that logistically, that alone, but then kind of, have I got time to take some time in the day to do the home practice? Is that, I don't know if you want to say something about that, either of you, or Josephine, or?
Yeah, it's not really, okay, we meet once a week, but actually it's almost like distance learning, you know, that actually the expectation is, as best you can, doing some practice every day. And then we come back and we look at the past week and the struggles and interesting things that might have been noticed. And then we have another interesting session, and then we all go off again and practice again. And so that's coming without once a week without practicing, it would be a bit dead, you know. The aliveness and the interesting stuff is sort of learning from each other, but also learning from what I am noticing when I'm, you know, walking down the street, when I'm noticing, oh, my hands are clenched and I've no idea why, you know. And then noticing that we can maybe unclench them, maybe, so on. So that, as you say, that commitment and that willingness, as best we can, to put some time in. And I think we said in the information leaflet, that may mean doing something you like doing and putting that aside for this particular 8 weeks, quite intensive course.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, thank you. And I guess then, I suppose we had mentioned earlier the orientation session. So maybe if we talk a bit about that, what that might involve for people.
Yeah, that's just sorry guys. There's a conversation that we'll have either over the phone or over Zoom. Particularly, I never mentioned at the beginning actually that one of the courses will be in person and one of the courses will be on over Zoom. Excuse me.
I see.
Thank you. And so if you're doing a Zoom course, the orientation's over Zoom, and if you're doing the in-person course, it can be either.
Okay.
But we basically just, it's an opportunity for us to have a chat, to explore a little bit more deeply your expectations of the course, what happens in the course, we mentioned earlier about whether this is a right fit or the right time, so we can decide to get together whether that's the case. And if it's not the case, you know, what other things that we can, you know, the next course, all of that kind of thing area. Yeah, and just to, you know, sort of make a little moment of contact to say hi to each other, and then, you know, it kind of sets things up, I think, really nicely for the 8 weeks. You know, it kind of helps with that commitment piece, I think.
Yeah, and that reminds me, Erica, also in that orientation, the one-to-one, like just whatever, if you're going through a lot of stress at the moment, or has there been recent stress, or do you have much support in your life? Because, you know, we know that having a little bit of support in whatever shape can really help. And as best you can, you know, if you think you might miss more than one class, then again, we would probably suggest waiting a little bit, because it's very developmental. You know, so missing one class, sometimes we try to make it up somehow. But it is, tonight, and that's why Aware very kindly, we were looking at, well, how can we really support and explain and encourage what it really is like. And so that sort of commitment as best you can to for this 8 weeks only to do the best you can, and just see what happens. And so there's no promises, there's nothing on the tin, Susan, to say you will be like this at the end. It's like, I'm going to try this, see what happens, but there is some fairly reliable evidence that something changes,
I guess that's the thing, isn't it? I suppose the nature of awareness itself, and that curious sort of friendly attention to experience can affect experience and how we relate to it. And I can say that, and it sounds very, I don't know how accessible that is as a description, but maybe it's in the doing, isn't it? And that's embodied in the course. So we could talk about it all night, but there's something about the experiential bit that you can only get when you do it. And as you say, Josephine, it's more having that intention to explore. And I suppose, as we're saying this evening, it is an intensive course, so it's trying to make sure it's the best fit for people and trying to come along as best they can. And I guess that the orientation is a way to connect with either of you. So Erica, you'll be doing you're doing in person, Erica, and Josephine's doing online. Yeah. So I guess it's a bit more of a personal conversation about where you're at personally. That wouldn't be for a group. So it's a bit more tailored, isn't it? Just to kind of find out. So for everyone who has registered for this webinar, the next step is to, I think Leah's going to send out a link tomorrow, and we'll ask you to register then for a place. It is first come, first serve. So it might be that if you don't get onto the course this time, you'll certainly be put on the waiting list to get on the next time, as long as, again, it's the right timing for you. But this time will be well spent, whether it's this course or the one that comes up after. Is that fair to say, maybe? Yeah. Okay. So, and for anyone kind of listening, or do ask questions if you have anything about that specifically, I wonder, there's a few questions that have come in, which we can try to get to. I wonder, Josephine or Erica, is there anything that we haven't said, do you think, that's important for us to mention?
Sorry, I was just starting to read the question. Sorry, Susan, I wasn't being mindful there of what you said.
Yeah, we lost you for a second. I was saying, is there anything, before we get to the questions, is there anything that you think we haven't covered that we should say at this point, or are you happy to open up to the questions?
But
I think you've frozen a bit there, Josephine.
Things will no.
Yeah. No. Okay. Should we go through them? Yeah. This one is an easy one. So what night of the week does the class run? So 2 nights, isn't it?
So Wednesday for the in-person.
Yeah.
7 to 9:30, 7 p.m. to 9:30 on Leeson Street.
Yeah, so that's the Aware offices for anyone who's not familiar. We have a Saturday peer support group there. And then Josephine, the online one?
Thursday mornings.
Thursday mornings. What time?
10 to half 12.
Okay, great. And this question is probably something that might come up for a lot of people. So this person is going to miss the first class. Does that make a difference? Can I still come along?
Sort of, ideally, that first class is everybody's there, because that's when we begin to talk about, what sort of a group I want to belong to. What is it I need from this group, and how would I like to be treated in this group? So we sort of develop the group norms or the guidelines in the first session. So it's sort of, we often consider the first one sort of really, really important to be there. And from then on, this is the group. We don't have people coming or going as best we can. So Stephen, I'm not sure about that. Yeah, generally we sort of say people have to come to the first class, but let's see what numbers show up,
Yeah. So, okay. So ideally it would be, the first, to kind of come along and I guess that's important to know, because I know the support groups that Aware runs are different. So as you say, that's quite crucial, isn't it? So there's it'll be the same people for the 8 weeks. It's not drop in and out. Like the group, as you say, will be the group. Obviously, if people can't attend or whatever, but it won't be new people coming every week, which is different. So it will be a specific cohort.
Because when it's open like that, there's not so much of a container, or trust builds up slowly, you know, if we're the same people, and that's one of the reasons why, you know.
Great. And I just see another question there that I feel is really fascinating, and probably is often something that people ask about. So how does experiential learning work online?
I mean, we didn't do anything online until COVID, and we were very sort of snotty about people who did. We thought, you know, but then of course we had to go online, and we were sort of amazed that it works okay. You know, there's a sense of community, a sense of the group, the guidance is very much the same. We ask people obviously to keep their camera on if possible, to have good light, you know, so you can see the three of us today because we have light in front of us. So as best we can to participate where you can be seen, you can be heard if you wish to speak, and that all. So we were amazed to find out that it's pretty good. It's pretty good, actually.
That's good to know, isn't it? So, and I guess it's sort of our ideas about it maybe can be different to how it is, which I guess is true of a lot of things, isn't it? So it's, again, it's the experience that's quite key in the learning. There's a question there about how many places. There's limited places, I guess it's important to say. So not everyone may be on this call, may be in the course this time round, but as I said, they're going to be a frequent feature. So it will be, if you don't get on, it will be in the next course. So just kind of bearing that in mind. It's just that it's a very limited resource, unfortunately.
But they're not huge groups, Susan. Just to think sometimes the size of the group can be important for us, can't it? So I think
absolutely.
In person it's maybe about 12, and for the online it's 16 or something, Josephine?
Yeah, around that number.
Okay. So maybe between 12 and 16. So that's that ideally wouldn't change too much. There's a question about I guess whether mindfulness can be effective for people with autism. Or I suppose maybe there's a more general question about kind of I don't know about the research on kind of very specific kind of needs or groups. And it might be something that is explored in more detail in an individual orientation session, but I don't know if there's anything we can say about that now that might be helpful. But if not, though, don't worry.
Off the top of my head, top of my head, I don't know. I suppose it depends on spectrums and all the rest of it, you know. But if people can, I suppose, be in a group and understand language, certainly there's almost no writing involved, you know. So literacy issues aren't a problem, but if people can, I suppose, understand, and it depends, doesn't it? It depends, I suppose.
And I guess just thinking about the literacy issue, I guess there's, as you said, like there's having, I guess, the Zoom availability for the online group and having the camera on, and sometimes that can be tricky, and not everyone might have a laptop or a computer, but it's hard, isn't it, on a phone to be in the group. So there's kind of like logistical stuff as well. So it's sort of ideally you'd have something that you can see the other people. Would you say, Josephine?
Yeah, because it's, and you say, Susan, if people only have a phone, well, that's just the way it is. But if someone was able to borrow something, just be able to see, you know, a group of other faces, sometimes smiling, sometimes, you know, so you have a feeling, oh, I'm not alone here.
Yeah.
It's so helpful.
Okay, great. So I'm just trying to get to the last of the questions. So there's some about availability. So as I said, maybe the kind of key message is after tomorrow, Leah will send a link for people to register. And I guess we're speaking on behalf of Aware, sort of sorry that there's so many steps, but I guess it's just trying to narrow it down into kind of what's going to be the best fit for the most people at the spaces that we have. So it might be, as it transpires from the call tonight, you might think, well, it doesn't quite suit time-wise, or actually it may not be the best time for now for lots of different reasons, but we would ask you to register your interest when you get that email from Leah. And I think there was a question about whether you'll know. We will have a way to communicate to the people on this call, whether they're on the waiting list or they're coming through, obviously, to the next program. Okay. And holding more sessions in different locations. I mean, I really hope so, you know. So the idea is to kind of roll it out a little bit bigger. For now, we're limited to the Dublin in-person group and the online one, but I suppose similar to a lot of our Aware offerings, people access the online offerings from all over the country. So please, you know, do kind of come along if you can if that's a more accessible version for you.
And possibly, Susan, next time
yeah.
the online might be in the evening to suit people who are working during the day, you know?
Yeah, so we can try to get enough of a variety in the timings that we can. If it doesn't work for you this time, it may well the next time, so we'll move it around. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's all the questions that we've got. I don't know if there's anything else, or maybe if we want to kind of close with a bit of a practice, maybe just to give people a bit of a sense of on an experiential level what they might expect. And I know I'm sort of repeating myself ad nauseum now, but do look out for the email from Leah tomorrow to register for the place. Okay, so I don't know, Erica or Josephine, do you want to lead in a short practice to close? I'd say, Josephine, your camera is freezing a bit. So you're a little bit in and out.
Yeah, I think I'm breaking up a little bit. Erica?
A little bit, yeah. It seems to be generally okay, but just a little bit. Yeah.
I can do a little small practice then if your camera's freezing and everything.
And okay, great. Erica, just before we start, sorry, the dates for the in-person and the date for the online.
18th of October.
For in-person, 18th of October. Yeah. And Josephine, the date for the online?
I think it's the 19th.
Yeah. So the day after the Thursday. So 18th in-person, 19th online. Yeah. Great.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay, so maybe might like to, if it feels okay, place both of your feet on the floor. So just inviting you to see if that feels okay, or not, if it's not something that you'd like to do right now, that's okay too. And you can see how it is to, you know, bring your attention maybe to the eyelids and decide if you'd like to maybe close the eyes or just soften your gaze. And so just an invitation to maybe noticing your body actually on the chair, just your body sitting here, the way your sort of posture is right now. And just letting your attention notice maybe muscles might feel perhaps a little tight in places. You might feel a little maybe hungry or tired. And so just letting all of that just gently sort of ripple away, but inviting your attention just to come down, sink down or drop down a little bit more towards your feet. So just maybe getting a sense of contact with your feet inside your shoes, connecting with the floor. Just a sense of feet. And then maybe also the particular sensations of press of your body in connection with the chair. And just noticing maybe your body's weight traveling down. And then lastly, just noticing your hands your forearms, wherever they're resting. The sort of a feeling of maybe touch of skin against lap or the weight. So just the three touch points: feet, and your seat, and your hands. And then whenever you're ready, if the eyes have been closed, we can flutter the eyelids. Bring your maybe your eyes might have a little stretch, having looked at the screen for some time, a little look around the room, and then just coming back to the screen. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much. Nice little taster maybe. And also like it's a taster of the experience of online, isn't it? Of what that might be, that experience, as well as it being slightly different in person. So yeah, thank you for that practice. So thank you, Josephine, and thank you, Erica, for giving up your time this evening to kind of talk through for our information session. Excuse me. And thanks to everyone for joining us. You look like you're going to say something, Josephine? Yep. Go ahead.
There was somebody asking here, does the course specifically look into stress reduction or more general mindfulness? So Erica said initially John Kabat-Zinn worked in a hospital, but was a meditation thing. And so what he developed was a course for chronic pain, but also people who were suffering from a lot of stress. That people were sent to his stress reduction clinic because they couldn't find anything, any medicine, any operation that was working. So stress reduction, I suppose, is a general label, you know, and basically it means, you know, how can we, I suppose, how do we add stress to an already stressful situation? And just looking at this, as Susan said, this responding, this pausing from the habitual reactivity again and again. Not our fault, but this what tends to happen. So I hope that answers the question, whoever asked that. Thank you.
Right, yeah, and thank you, Josephine. That was, I think I missed that. So yeah, thank you for spotting it. Hopefully it's answered. Yeah, so thank you everyone for joining. As I said, thanks for giving up your time on this Monday evening to talk through what the course might involve and get a bit of a practice. And we hope to see many of you on the course later on in the month. All right, thanks again. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye now.
Thanks for coming up, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Take care. Thanks, Susan. Thanks,